All right, so you know how everyone wants to be good at English. Well, today we are going to look at some really cool tips from this YouTube teacher named Sam, and he's all about making learning English fun.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's really interesting about Sam's approach is that, he really tackles this feeling that a lot of people have, that learning English is like a chore.
Oh, totally.
Like
Yeah.
we've all been there, right? Like stuck in a classroom, memorizing verb conjugations and just feeling like,
You're like, we're getting
I'm
nowhere.
never going to be able to do this.
Yeah, exactly. It's like trying to
If you're
learn to ride a
looking.
bike by just
Nah.
reading the manual, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
And Sam's approach is all about action.
Yeah.
It's about treating English as a skill you develop by using it, not just studying it.
Totally. And so one of his biggest points is to start speaking from day one,
Right.
which I think for a lot of people can be kind of intimidating.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I know when I was learning Spanish, I was like terrified to say the wrong thing.
Yeah, it's natural to feel that way. But think about how kids learn their first language.
Right.
They don't wait until they have perfect grammar to start babbling.
Yeah, just go for it.
They just dive right in.
Yeah.
And research actually shows that this fear of making mistakes creates a mental block that linguists call the affective filter.
The what filter?
The affective filter, and basically
Okay.
the lower your affective filter, the more your brain is open to absorbing new language.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
by like embracing those early mistakes, we're actually helping ourselves learn faster.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but it's really powerful.
I like that.
And another thing that Sam talks about is ditching the textbooks
Yeah.
and immersing yourself in English entertainment.
Oh, yeah. Like what kind of stuff?
So, movies, music, YouTube channels,
Okay.
it's all fair game.
Gotcha.
The key is to make it enjoyable and to use strategies like subtitles.
Right.
You can start by watching with subtitles and then gradually challenge yourself to understand without them.
And he also recommends a technique called shadowing,
Yes.
which I've heard about, but never actually tried.
Yeah.
What is that?
So shadowing is basically listening to a short English audio clip and then immediately repeating what you hear, trying to mimic the speaker's accent speed and even intonation.
Wow.
And what's amazing is that this process actually helps rewire your brain for pronunciation and fluency.
So it's like
Yeah,
building muscle memory for your mouth and ears.
exactly. By mimicking those speech patterns, you're training your brain to process and produce English sounds more naturally.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful way to improve your accent and become more confident in your speaking abilities.
I like that.
And then another thing that Sam suggests is using language learning games and apps.
Yeah, those are fun.
Right? Apps like Duolingo and Quizlet can make vocabulary building feel more like a game than a chore.
Yeah.
Even something like Wordle can help you learn new words in a fun and engaging way.
Right. Like Wordle.
Yeah.
And then one that I thought was really interesting is like the idea of actually thinking in English,
Yes.
which honestly sounds a little bit mind-boggling.
It might sound strange at first, but it's a crucial step towards fluency.
Okay.
So instead of constantly translating from your native language,
Right.
you start to think directly in English.
Oh, wow.
And studies have shown that thinking in the language you're learning actually strengthens the neural pathways associated with that language, making it easier to speak and understand.
Wow. So it's like building a mental pathway
Exactly.
for English to like flow through.
Yeah.
What are some practical ways to start doing that?
Well, there are some simple exercises you can try.
Okay.
Start by naming objects around you in English.
Okay.
So instead of thinking mesa, think table.
Okay.
Describe your actions as you do them.
Right.
I'm making coffee. I'm opening the door.
I like that.
Yeah.
Like narrating your own life in English.
Exactly. You can even try having a conversation with yourself in English, even if it's just for a minute or two.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Remember, no one's listening, so don't be afraid to make mistakes.
That's actually a really great tip. I used to feel self-conscious about practicing my Spanish out loud, but like talking to myself really helped me get over that.
Yeah.
So it's really about making it a habit.
Exactly. The more you practice thinking in English, the more natural it will become and the faster you'll progress towards fluency.
I like it. So we've talked about speaking from day one, immersing ourselves in English entertainment,
Right.
using games and apps and even thinking in English.
Yeah.
It sounds like Sam's approach is all about surrounding yourself with the language as much as possible.
You're absolutely right. And that brings us to his big secret.
Okay.
The concept that ties all of these techniques together
I'm all ears, spill beans.
is the power of immersion. And it might sound simple, but creating an English-speaking environment for yourself, even if you're not living in an English-speaking country, can dramatically accelerate your learning.
So it's like being dropped in your
Yeah.
English-speaking country,
Exactly.
but without the plane ticket.
Right. It's about making English a constant presence in your life, not just something you study for a few hours a week.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So how can we actually do that? Like, what are some ways to make English a more integral part of our daily lives?
Yeah.
So it's like, how do we actually make it, like a part of our lives?
Yeah. Well, one thing that Sam suggests is something called the 1% rule.
Okay, the RIT rule.
The 1% rule.
Okay.
And it's basically the idea that instead of trying to overhaul everything at once,
Yeah.
you just focus on small, consistent improvements.
Right.
So you don't need to spend hours studying every day.
Right.
Even small changes like switching your phone's language to English
Okay.
or listening to an English podcast during your commute can make a big difference over time.
So instead of feeling overwhelmed by like trying to become fluent overnight,
Right.
it's like making those small changes.
Yeah, it's about making English a natural part of your life.
Yeah.
Bit by bit.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
And he uses this analogy of like building a mental house
Yes.
for English to live in.
I love that analogy.
Every time you interact with the language,
Right.
so you're adding another brick to that house,
Exactly.
making it stronger, more comfortable.
It's not about cramming information. It's about creating a space for English to thrive in your mind.
Yeah.
And the more you use it, the more natural it becomes.
Yeah, it becomes less about conscious effort and more about like instinct.
Exactly. You start to think, react, and even dream in English.
Yeah, speaking of dreams, I remember when I was learning Spanish, I actually started having dreams in Spanish,
Oh, wow.
which was so bizarre, but it was also like a sign that I was really starting to internalize the language.
Yeah, that's a fantastic sign.
Yeah.
It means your brain is processing the language even when you're asleep.
Yep.
It's proof that immersion really works.
So what does all this mean for you, our listener?
Right.
If you are serious about like conquering English, it's time to ditch the idea that it's just a subject you study.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle shift.
Okay.
Instead of just memorizing words and grammar rules, you're actively integrating English into your daily life, having fun with it, and using it to connect with the world around you.
Yeah, that's way more fun than sitting at a
Yes.
desk with a textbook.
It is.
So when you start to see English as a tool for communication, entertainment, personal growth, that's when fluency really takes off.
Exactly.
So what are like some small but impactful changes our listeners could make?
Well, one simple but effective strategy is to start labeling things around your home with English sticky notes.
That's a good idea.
So you see a lamp, slap a lamp label on it.
Okay.
Refrigerator. Refrigerator it is.
Gotcha.
It might seem silly, but it's a fun way to reinforce vocabulary and keep English top of mind throughout the day.
I like that. So it's like creating your own little immersive English environment.
Yeah.
Right in your own home.
And as you become more comfortable with basic vocabulary, you can start labeling things with more descriptive phrases.
Oh.
So instead of just chair, you could label it comfortable armchair or wooden dining chair. It's a way to level up your vocabulary and start thinking more creatively in English.
So it's all about finding those little opportunities
Right.
to like sprinkle English
Yeah.
into your daily life.
And remember, every little bit counts.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate the power of consistency.
Totally.
Even 5 minutes of English practice a day is better than none.
That's true. It's about finding those pockets of time and making the most of them.
And most importantly, have fun with it.
Yeah.
Learning a language shouldn't feel like a chore.
Right.
Experiment with different methods, find what sparks your interest, and embrace the journey.
Yeah, that's a key takeaway, I think, from Sam's approach is like learning English should be an adventure,
Yes.
not a burden.
Yeah.
Speaking of adventure, this has got me thinking like, what are some unconventional ways you've learned languages?
I've always been a big fan of learning through music.
Oh, tell me more.
Well, when I was learning French, I completely immersed myself in French music.
Okay.
I listened to it constantly, looked up the lyrics, and even tried to sing along, even if my pronunciation was atrocious at first.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And you know what I found? Learning through music not only helped me with vocabulary and pronunciation,
Yeah.
but it also gave me a deeper understanding of French culture and expression.
Right.
I started to pick up on the nuances of the language,
Yeah.
the slanging, the humor things you don't always get from a textbook.
Yeah, music is like a window into the soul of a culture.
Yep, it is.
And it's so much more engaging than just memorizing
Yes.
vocabulary lists.
Absolutely.
So if you're feeling stuck in a rut with your English learning, maybe it's time to crank up some English tunes
Yeah,
and let the rhythm guide you.
I couldn't agree more.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the bigger picture.
Okay.
We've covered so many practical tips and techniques,
Right.
but Ultimately, the success of your English learning journey depends on one crucial factor,
And that is,
your mindset.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
all about believing in yourself,
yeah.
embracing those challenges, and, celebrating every step forward.
It's about seeing those mistakes not as failures,
Yeah.
but as opportunities for growth.
Like everybody makes mistakes.
Right. Every fluent English speaker was once a beginner stumbling over words,
Totally.
making grammatical errors.
Yeah.
It's all part of the process.
Exactly. And I think instead of getting discouraged, you should focus on the progress you're making, no
Yes.
matter how small it may seem.
Celebrate those little victories.
Yeah.
Did you understand a whole sentence in a movie without subtitles?
Yes.
High five.
Whoa.
Did you have a short conversation with a native speaker without freezing up?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I did it.
It's those little moments of triumph
Yeah.
that keep us motivated and fuel our desire to learn.
Totally. And then as you gain confidence, you'll find yourself naturally seeking out more opportunities to use English,
Right.
whether it's chatting with friends online, reading English books, or even traveling to English-speaking countries.
It becomes a self-perpetuating cycle
Yeah.
of growth and discovery.
Yeah, the more you engage with the
Right.
language,
Yeah.
the more you learn.
The more confident you become.
Yeah, and that's the ultimate reward, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
the ability to connect with people from all walks of life.
Absolutely. English is more than just a language.
Yeah.
It's a passport to a world of possibilities.
I like that. So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a final thought-provoking question.
Okay, here we go.
We've talked about so many different approaches to learning English,
Right.
but ultimately the best approach is the one that works for you.
Exactly.
So our question for you, dear listener, is this. What's one small, fun step you can take today to bring more English into your world?
Is it finally watching that English language TV show you've been meaning to start?
Or is it downloading a language learning app
Ooh, yeah.
and challenging yourself to a 5-minute game each day,
Or maybe it's putting on your favorite English song and belting it out at the top of your lungs.
even if you don't know all the words?
Exactly. Because the choice is yours.
Yeah,
The key is to find something that sparks your interest and makes you excited to learn.
because when you're having fun, learning becomes an adventure, not a chore.
Totally.
And when you're enjoying the process, you're far more likely to stick with it and reach your fluency goals.
So go out there, dear listener, and make English your playground.
Yeah.
Experiment, play, explore, and most importantly, have fun.
We can't wait to hear about your language learning adventures.